cold fluorescent lights of Lenox Hill Hospital were still buzzing when Maddie Rowan opened her eyes after the C-section, expecting her husband, Charles Aldridge, to be the first face she saw. Instead, he entered the room like a man inspecting a failed deal, not a father meeting his newborn triplets. Without looking at the babies, he placed a pristine folder on her bedside table and said calmly, "Sign it. Our marriage ends today." Maddie, exhausted and trembling, begged him to wait, to at least hold the children they had prayed for. But Charles adjusted his cufflinks and whispered, "They're better off without you." She didn't understand. She couldn't. As she struggled to sit up, Charles leaned closer, voice low. "If you refuse, I'll make sure the court believes you're unstable. I've prepared everything." The room spun. Everything felt unreal. A fresh mother, stitched from surgery, threatened with losing everything. Maddie felt her breath crack as she reached for the folder. That was the moment the door swung open and a voice she never expected cut through his lie. Before the coldness of that hospital room, Maddie Rowan had lived a life that looked calm from the outside but was stitched together with quiet sacrifices no one ever saw. At 29, she worked as a financial coordinator at a Manhattan investment firm, a job she fought hard to earn. Every morning, she rushed through the city with her worn leather bag, clutching her lukewarm Starbucks and hoping no one noticed the dark circles under her eyes. Life wasn't glamorous, but it was stable enough until Charles Aldridge stepped into it. Charles, already a rising CEO, noticed Maddie during a cross-firm meeting. He admired her accuracy, her honest eyes, her determination to prove herself. Or at least that's what she believed. Back then, she thought his attention was a blessing. When he invited her to lunch on Park Avenue, she felt chosen, seen, finally valued. No one had ever looked at her like that. No one had ever asked about her dreams. Within a year, they were engaged. Maddie mistook his possessiveness for love, his constant questions for concern, his insistence on managing her finances for care. She didn't notice the trap forming around her. She didn't see his subtle comments shifting. "Let me handle the bills. You shouldn't stress about work. Quit your job. Focus on us." She gave in because she loved him, because she thought marriage meant trust, because she had no family to warn her. The only person who ever raised a concern was Harper Lane, her college friend, who told her, "Powerful men don't always choose out of love, they choose out of usefulness." Maddie laughed it off. She didn't believe it, until something happened that she couldn't explain the night Charles disappeared without warning, hours before their engagement photo shoot. The night Charles vanished before their engagement photo shoot stayed in Maddie's memory like a shadow creeping beneath a locked door. She waited in the small studio on West 34th Street, dressed in a simple cream dress the photographer recommended, clutching her phone as minutes turned into hours. Charles finally arrived close to midnight, smelling faintly of expensive cologne she didn't recognize and offering an excuse that sounded rehearsed. Maddie pushed her worry aside, convincing herself love required patience. After the wedding, they moved into a sleek penthouse at 157, a place that felt more like Charles's museum than their home. He traveled often, leaving Maddie alone with schedules and silence. At first, she tried to fill the emptiness by decorating the apartment, cooking his favorite meals, and keeping herself busy. But every effort seemed to irritate him. He started criticizing her for small things, how she folded the laundry, how she breathed when stressed, how she asked too many questions. Maddie learned to stay quiet. One evening, while he hosted a private investor dinner, Maddie overheard him introduce her as a sweet distraction, not a partner. The words stung, but she smiled, pretending not to hear. She still believed she could win his affection if she worked harder. But the real turning point came when she found a locked drawer in his office. Charles never allowed her inside, claiming confidentiality. That night, a gust of wind from the balcony door knocked over a stack of papers, revealing a slim silver key. Maddie stared at it, feeling the weight of a truth she didn't yet understand. Her hands trembled as she approached the drawer, knowing everything could change with one small turn of a key when the sound of footsteps echoed down the hallway. Maddie froze, the silver key cold in her palm as Charles's footsteps came closer down the hallway of their 157 penthouse. Her heartbeat thudded against her ribs like it wanted out. She shoved the key into her pocket just seconds before Charles entered the room, loosening his tie with that same irritated expression he always wore when he saw her in his workspace. He didn't notice her panic. Or maybe he did and didn't care. "Why are you in here?" he asked sharply. Maddie mumbled something about bringing him water, but his dismissive wave sent her out of the room, her legs stiff and trembling. She didn't sleep that night. She kept running her fingers over the key under her pillow, wondering what secrets Charles guarded so carefully. The next morning, while Charles showered, Maddie returned to the office. Her hands shook as she slipped the key into the locked drawer and turned it. The click felt like thunder. Inside, she found a stack of documents with her name printed in bold. Psychiatric evaluations she'd never taken, prescriptions she'd never seen, and notes describing her as emotionally volatile and mentally unfit for parenting. Her vision blurred. Every line felt like a blade cutting into her trust. Why would he need this? Why create a false record, unless... Then she saw the real bombshell. A set of legal papers drafted months earlier, outlining a divorce plan designed to strip her of any financial rights. Charles had been preparing her downfall long before she became pregnant. Maddie's breath broke into small, shaky gasps. She tried to put everything back exactly as it was, but her fingers slipped, and one document fell to the floor just as the bathroom door opened, and Charles stepped out, staring straight at the drawer she couldn't close in time. Charles's stare froze Maddie in place. A drop of water slid down his jaw as he stood in the doorway, fresh from the shower, but his eyes were blade-sharp, calculating, cold, caught off guard. Maddie tried to push the drawer shut with her hip, pretending nothing was wrong, but the document on the floor betrayed her. Charles stepped forward slowly, as if approaching a wild animal he needed to corner. "Maddie," he said quietly, "why are you touching things that don't belong to you?" His calm tone terrified her more than if he'd screamed. She forced herself to look up. "Why are there files with my name? Why are there evaluations I never took?" Her voice cracked. Charles let out a small, disappointed sigh, the kind he used whenever he wanted her to feel foolish. "Because I needed to be prepared. You're emotional, Maddie, unpredictable, and with a family as visible as mine, I can't afford a wife who spirals." Her stomach twisted. "Spirals?" He stepped close enough for her to smell the mint from his shower. "I've done everything for you. The least you can do is not embarrass me." Then he made a mistake. A fatal one. He muttered under his breath, "You were never supposed to get pregnant anyway." The world snapped. Maddie stared at him, stunned. "What do you mean?" Charles didn't answer. Instead, he moved toward her, plucked the file from her hand, and returned everything to the drawer with chilling precision. "Go to bed," he ordered. "We'll talk when you're thinking clearly." But Maddie couldn't move. She couldn't breathe. The sentence replayed over and over in her mind. Never supposed to get pregnant. The truth hit her too late, and the next morning she would discover exactly what he meant. The next morning arrived with a heaviness Maddie couldn't shake. She woke to Charles already dressed, flawlessly pressed suit, Mont Blanc pen clipped in his pocket like he had a board meeting instead of a marriage collapsing by inches. He didn't look at her when he said, "I'll be home late, don't wait up." Then the penthouse door closed, leaving behind an echo that made her chest tighten. Something inside Maddie told her not to ignore last night's words, never supposed to get pregnant. She felt the babies flutter 3 small kicks like warnings and forced herself to dig deeper. She didn't know what she was searching for until she found a medical bill tucked between magazines on the kitchen counter, a fertility clinic. Dated months before she even considered starting a family. Her heart pounded. Why would Charles visit a clinic alone? Maddie grabbed her phone and searched the clinic's name. Her hands trembled as she saw the headline on their website, specializing in IVF gender selection and high-profile discretion. Her stomach dropped. Had Charles planned their future children without her? Chosen traits? Chosen timing? Chosen everything? A disturbing possibility surfaced. Maybe the pregnancy wasn't an accident he resented. Maybe it was an accident he didn't control. Desperate for answers, Maddie called Harper. As soon as Harper heard her shaking voice, she rushed over. When Maddie showed her the bill, Harper's eyes hardened. This clinic. Charles's family used it before. They're known for manipulation. This isn't a coincidence. Maddie felt her world crack open. Harper, what if he never wanted kids with me? What if he planned to replace me? Before Harper could answer, the elevator dinged too early for Charles to be home. The doors slid open, and the woman stepping out made Maddie's blood turn to ice. Standing in the elevator doorway was a woman Maddie had seen only once briefly, at Charles's investor dinner months earlier. Back then, she thought the woman was just another polished assistant in a sleek black dress. But now, up close, Maddie recognized her instantly. Elise Marrow, Charles's personal advisor. Perfect hair, perfect posture, perfect confidence. Elise stepped out as if she owned the penthouse. "Charles forgot a document," she said coolly, holding a slim leather folder. Her eyes flicked briefly to Harper, then settled on Maddie's pregnant belly with a faint, almost irritated frown. Harper moved closer to Maddie in a protective stance. "You don't have authorization to enter this home without Charles present." But Elise didn't flinch. "Actually, I do." She raised a keycard, one that matched the penthouse's security system. Maddie felt sick. Charles had given another woman full access to their home. Trying to keep her voice steady, Maddie asked, "Why do you have that?" Elise glanced around the living room, unimpressed, then answered with chilling honesty. "Because Charles trusts me." The emphasis wasn't accidental. Harper's jaw tensed. "Trusts you with what exactly?" Elise's lips curved into a sharp, knowing smile. "More than he trusts his wife." The room tilted. Maddie gripped the counter to keep herself upright. Elise placed the leather folder on the coffee table and added, "He asked me to collect these financial projections. We're planning a restructuring, a significant one." Her gaze locked with Maddie's. "You won't be part of it." Something in Maddie snapped. "What are you talking about?" Elise studied her like she was an obstacle, not a human being. "You were never meant to be in his long-term plans. The pregnancy complicated everything." Maddie's breath faltered. "Complicated? What?" Elise didn't answer. Instead, she picked up her phone, typing something quickly. A notification pinged on Maddie's device seconds later. When she looked at the screen, her heart stopped. A photo of Charles and Elise in a hotel room, time-stamped months before Maddie even knew she was pregnant. Maddie stared at the photo glowing on her screen, the world narrowing into a single, devastating image. Charles shirtless, sitting on a hotel bed, Elise leaning into him with a smile Maddie had never once received. The timestamp burned into her mind. He hadn't just cheated, he'd cheated while telling her he loved her, while pretending to build a family, while asking her to trust him. Her knees buckled. Harper caught her just before she collapsed. "Sit down, breathe," Harper whispered, but Maddie's chest felt too tight to pull in air. Elise didn't look sorry. She didn't even look embarrassed. "You needed to know eventually," she said, shrugging lightly. "Charles wanted a partner who fits the Aldridge image. Someone polished, someone useful." "Useful?" Maddie choked. "I'm his wife." Elise raised an eyebrow. "Were." The word sliced deeper than the photo. Harper stepped forward. "You need to leave. Now." But Elise wasn't finished. She walked to the kitchen counter, tapping her nail on the fertility clinic bill Maddie found earlier. "You think this pregnancy gives you power. It doesn't. Charles has been prepared for months." Maddie's voice shook. "Prepared for what?" Elise smiled a cruel, satisfied smile. "To remove you quietly. He already met with a custody specialist. He has doctors willing to testify you're emotionally unstable. After the birth, he'll take the children. Permanently." The room spun. Maddie pressed a hand over her belly, as if shielding her babies from the nightmare unfolding. Elise picked up the folder she brought, snapped it shut, and walked toward the elevator. "Don't worry," she added without turning back. "Charles always takes care of what's his." The elevator doors closed behind her with a cold metallic thud, and in that silence, Harper revealed something that made the betrayal even darker. Charles had already filed the preliminary custody petition 2 weeks ago. Maddie sat frozen as Harper laid the custody petition on the dining table, the pages trembling in her hand. The bold heading, "Aldridge versus Rowan," looked like it belonged to strangers, not the man she'd married. Not the man who had once sworn to protect her. Maddie flipped through the pages. Each section worse than the last. Claims she was unstable, accusations she'd fabricated her pregnancy symptoms, statements from doctors she'd never met. "They built an entire case against you," Harper said quietly. "Months ago." Maddie shook her head violently. "But why? Why take my babies?" Harper hesitated before answering. "Charles wants heirs, but not with you. You weren't part of the long-term Aldridge plan." The room felt colder than winter outside. Maddie's hands instinctively wrapped around her belly, holding her triplets as if she could shield them through sheer will. "He can't take them," she whispered. "He can't." Harper knelt beside her. "He can't if we fight. But you need to understand, Charles is moving quickly. Faster than I expected." As if on cue, Maddie's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You won't win. He never loses." Harper grabbed the phone. "He's tightening the circle." Then another message popped up, this time a voice memo. Maddie hesitated, then pressed play. Charles's voice filled the room, cold and confident. "Once the children are born, Elise and I will proceed with our plan. Maddie won't be a problem. She never has been." Maddie felt something inside her crack, not the soft hurt she'd always carried, but a sharp break, the beginning of something fierce. Something she didn't recognize yet. Harper stood. "We're going to expose him, Maddie. But first, we need proof. Real proof." Before Maddie could respond, the penthouse intercom beeped sharply, and a man's voice announced he was there to deliver a psychiatric notice, claiming she was a danger to herself and her unborn children. The intercom crackled again, the man's voice firm and rehearsed. "Miss Rowan, I'm here to serve a psychiatric safety order. Please open the door." Maddie's pulse roared in her ears. Harper stepped toward the entrance, blocking it with her body. "Do not open," she warned. "This is exactly how Charles planned to trap you. If you accept that notice, they can force a 72-hour evaluation. You'd be isolated, vulnerable." Maddie's legs trembled. "He wants me locked away before the babies come." "Yes," Harper said softly. "It's the fastest way to claim you're unstable." The man outside knocked harder. "Miss Rowan, refusal will be documented." Harper motioned for Maddie to hide in the bedroom while she handled it, but Maddie stood her ground. She wouldn't run anymore. "Harper, what do we do?" Harper took a deep breath. "We buy time." She pressed the intercom button. "This is Attorney Harper Lane. My client is under medical protection due to a high-risk pregnancy. Any attempted forced notice will be considered harassment and obstruction. Leave your card. We'll contact you." There was a pause, then the man muttered something and left. Relief lasted only seconds. Harper picked up the custody petition again and pointed to the last page. "This is worse than I thought. Charles filed an emergency motion claiming you pose a threat to the babies. A judge could sign this any day." Maddie felt the room tilt. "How do we stop it?" Harper reached into her briefcase and pulled out a sealed envelope. With this, inside was a letter bearing the crest of the Rowan family, one Maddie barely remembered. "Your grandmother left you more than property," Harper said. "She left legal authority. Power Charles never knew existed." Maddie's breath caught. "What kind of power?" Harper met her eyes. "Enough to destroy every lie he built." But before Maddie could ask more, her phone buzzed a text from Charles himself. "Pack your things. When I get home, you're leaving." Maddie stared at Charles's text, her fingers numb. "Pack your things." The words felt like a final shove off a cliff she'd been clinging to for far too long. Harper grabbed the phone from her trembling hand and read the message, her expression darkening. "He's accelerating everything. Faster than even I predicted." Maddie stepped back, clutching her belly, feeling the babies shift anxiously. "Harper, he's coming here tonight. What if he tries to force me out? What if he brings people?" "He will," Harper answered bluntly. "Men like Charles don't send warnings unless they've already secured the next move." Maddie's throat tightened. "What do we do?" Harper reached for the Rowan crest envelope again. "Your grandmother wasn't just wealthy, she was legally strategic. This letter grants you instant protective rights over your unborn children and immediate access to a trust that gives you financial independence. You're not as powerless as he thinks." But Maddie shook her head. "He controls everything, the penthouse, the finances. Not anymore." Harper pulled out her laptop, opened a secured program, and turned the screen toward Maddie. "Your grandmother placed emergency funds in an international account under your name, enough to relocate, hire protection, even challenge him publicly." Maddie blinked, stunned. "Why didn't I know?" "Because she knew Charles's family," Harper said softly. "She knew if they learned of your inheritance, they'd try to take it. She trusted only one person to deliver this information, me." Before Maddie could speak, the penthouse lights flickered. A moment later, the building's security system pinged a digital tone Maddie had heard only when Charles entered. Harper stiffened. He's here. Maddie felt her breath hitch. No, he said tonight. It's only 5. Harper's jaw clenched. That text wasn't a warning, it was a distraction. Footsteps approached in the hallway, slow, deliberate, unmistakable. And then Charles's voice echoed through the penthouse. Madeline, we need to talk. Now. Charles's footsteps were steady, unhurried, the stride of a man who believed the outcome was already his. Maddie instinctively stepped closer to Harper, her pulse fluttering like a trapped bird. When Charles turned the corner into the living room, his expression held no surprise at seeing Harper there, only irritation, the kind he reserved for inconveniences beneath him. He adjusted his cufflinks and spoke calmly, too calmly. Madeline, pack your essentials. You're leaving tonight. I've arranged transportation. Harper stepped in front of Maddie. She's not going anywhere. Charles laughed soft, condescending. Harper Lane, still overstepping boundaries you don't understand? His gaze slid to Maddie. She's unstable, Harper. The court will confirm it. The evaluation team is ready. Maddie felt a chill. You tried to have me committed. While I'm pregnant with your children. Correction, Charles replied coolly. With the Aldridge heirs, you've become unpredictable. I'm protecting them. Harper's voice cut like steel. We know about the fake psychiatric records, the fertility clinic, the custody petition you filed before she was even in her 2nd trimester. For the first time, Charles's jaw tightened. You think you can intimidate me with half-truths? My legal team won't survive discovery, Harper interrupted. We have proof, real proof, medical fraud, manipulation, and motive. Charles's eyes sharpened. You're bluffing. Maddie reached into her pocket and pulled out the silver key, the one that opened his locked drawer. She held it up. I saw everything, Charles. Every evaluation, every lie. A muscle jumped in his cheek. You don't know what you've done. Yes, Maddie whispered, voice trembling but steady. I finally opened my eyes. Charles stepped closer, lowering his voice. You're leaving tonight with or without your lawyer. Harper didn't move. She's not leaving this penthouse. Charles exhaled sharply, pulled out his phone, and made a single call. Bring security up. Maddie gasped. You're forcing me out? But Charles didn't respond. He only watched the elevator numbers rise toward the penthouse, and Harper whispered to Maddie the one thing that could change everything. We're not staying to fight. We're escaping. The elevator numbers climbed steadily, 22, 23, 24, each ding tightening the knot in Maddie's chest. Harper grabbed her arm, guiding her toward the bedroom. Pack nothing, she whispered. We take only what matters. But the babies, my medical files. Maddie's voice shook. I already downloaded everything we need, Harper said, tapping her tablet. Your grandmother's trust, the legal protections, the financial documents, they're all secured. We just need to get you out before security gets in. Maddie hesitated. He'll chase us. He will, Harper admitted, but not fast enough. The elevator dinged again, 25th floor. Charles began pacing, irritated, confident. He controlled the next move. Running will only make you look guilty, Madeline. Judges despise impulsive mothers. Maddie flinched, but Harper squeezed her hand. That's what he wants you to believe. But this time, you're not alone. Harper opened the bedroom window not to climb out, but to signal. Down on 57th Street, headlights flashed twice from a black SUV idling near the loading bay. My firm has private security, Harper whispered. Licensed, armed, and not afraid of men like Charles. The elevator dinged again, 26th. Charles turned toward the door, straightening his jacket. Stay put, Madeline. I'll escort you when they arrive. Don't embarrass yourself further. Harper rolled her eyes. He really thinks he owns the world, doesn't he? They slipped into the service hallway behind the bedroom, a space Maddie didn't even know existed. Pipes lined the ceiling, dim lights flickering overhead. Harper led her quickly, one hand supporting Maddie's swollen belly. Footsteps thundered from the penthouse entrance. Security had arrived. Charles's voice echoed. Check every room. She's unstable. Don't let her harm herself. The lie burned, but Maddie kept moving. They reached the stairwell. Harper pushed the door open, and waiting there was a man in a tactical jacket with Harper's firm emblem. Miss Rowan? He asked. We're here to protect you. Maddie nearly collapsed in relief. But before they could descend, a voice boomed from above. Charles had found the service hallway, and he was coming down the stairs after them. Charles's footsteps pounded down the metal stairs, each heavy step echoing like a warning. Maddie clutched the railing, breath shallow, her body straining under the weight of her pregnancy. Harper positioned herself between Maddie and the approaching danger while the security officer guided them downward. "Move quickly, but hold the rail," he instructed. Maddie's pulse thundered in her ears. "He's right behind us," she whispered. Harper didn't look back. "He won't touch you. Not tonight." But Charles's voice descended the stairwell like ice water. "Madeline, stop this nonsense. You're endangering my children. Come back upstairs." "My children, not our." The words sliced her deeply. The officer quickened his pace. 17th floor landing is a crossover level. We can cut through to the service elevator." They reached the landing and the stairwell door suddenly rattled. Charles had reached the top. "Madeline, you cannot run from the truth." Harper grabbed Maddie's arm. "Ignore him. Keep moving." But Charles's next sentence froze her blood. "You think you're protecting them? Those babies weren't even supposed to survive." Maddie gasped. "Survive? What does that mean?" Charles's voice was infuriatingly calm. "You weren't strong enough. I told the doctor to prepare for selective reduction. You ruined everything by insisting on natural progression." Maddie nearly collapsed, a sob choking her. You wanted to eliminate one of them?" Harper's face hardened with fury. "He's confessing. Keep his voice going." She subtly tapped her phone recording. The officer opened the crossover door, ushering them into a dim hallway lined with maintenance carts. But as they hurried toward the service elevator, a crash echoed above. Charles had broken through the stairwell door, footsteps slamming closer. "Madeline," he shouted, "you are not leaving with my heirs." Harper shoved Maddie into the elevator as the officer hit the down button. Charles lunged into the hallway, eyes wild, hands outstretched. But the elevator doors slid shut in his face, sealing them inside just as he roared her name, and Maddie finally realized he wasn't just cruel, he was dangerous. The service elevator rattled downward, each floor passing too slowly for Maddie's trembling nerves. Harper stood at her side, gripping her phone with the recording still running, while the security officer monitored the panel for any override attempt. "He can't stop this elevator unless he reaches the control room," the officer reassured. "We'll make it." But Maddie couldn't stop shaking. Charles's confession echoed in her skull, selective reduction, eliminating one of the babies. Her babies. Her chest tightened with a pain deeper than fear. It was grief, betrayal, rage. When the doors finally opened into the underground loading bay, cold air rushed in. A black SUV waited with tinted windows, engine humming softly. The officer guided Maddie inside while Harper slid in beside her. "We're heading to a secured safe house," Harper said. "He won't be able to track you." Maddie stared at the passing Manhattan streets through the tinted glass. "I don't understand. How did this all happen without me seeing it? How did I not know who he truly was?" Harper put a steady hand over hers. "Because you believed in him. That's not a weakness, Maddie. It's humanity." The SUV turned sharply onto a quieter street near the Hudson. The safe house looked ordinary, an unmarked brownstone with dim lighting, but inside, the atmosphere shifted. Warm lamps, soft blankets, a stocked kitchen, a medical kit, everything meant for her safety. As the officer checked the perimeter, Harper opened her laptop. "I need you to see this," she said, pulling up a document bearing the Aldridge capital seal. "Charles wasn't just planning a divorce. He was preparing to replace you financially, legally, and personally." Maddie's heart pounded. "Replace me with who?" Harper turned the screen. There, in a signed internal memo, was the answer. Elise Marrow listed as future Mrs. Aldridge in Charles's private succession plans. The room tilted. Maddie clutched her belly, tears burning her eyes, and Harper whispered the next blow. "This plan starts tomorrow, unless we stop him first." Maddie couldn't tear her eyes from the memo. Future Mrs. Aldridge. Elise's name typed neatly beside it, the date of the planned announcement only weeks away around her due date. Her stomach twisted, not just from panic, but from the triplets reacting to her distress. Harper closed the laptop gently. "This is why he needed you gone, Maddie. Not just divorced, removed." Maddie wiped her tears with shaking hands. "He was going to replace me before I even gave birth. Like I was disposable." "You were never disposable," Harper said firmly. "But he wanted control, complete control. and Elise wanted your life. The officer stepped back into the living room. Perimeter is clear, but we should assume he'll try to track her phone or card activity soon. I already disabled triangulation, Harper replied. He won't find her. But Maddie wasn't listening. Something inside her, something that had been soft and frightened for years, began to harden. You said we could stop him, she said. How? Harper hesitated only a second. By using the one thing he never counted on, you having your grandmother's legal authority. You're the heir to the Rowan Trust. It includes controlling shares in several companies tied to Aldridge Capital's liquidity. We can freeze his assets overnight. Maddie blinked, stunned. Freeze? Charles's assets? All of them, Harper confirmed. But that's just the legal side. The officer stepped forward. We also have the recording of his confession. And the forged psychiatric records. That's enough to destroy his public image and open a criminal investigation. A tremor ran through Maddie, not fear this time, but something fierce. He tried to take my children. He tried to erase me. I won't let him win. Harper placed a supportive hand on her shoulder. Then tomorrow, we start the process. Quietly, precisely, and right in the heart of Manhattan. Maddie inhaled deeply, her resolve solidifying. What's the first step? Harper met her eyes. We go public in a controlled strike. But before Maddie could ask how, someone knocked on the safe house door, 3 slow, deliberate taps, and Harper's face went pale as she whispered, "That's not one of ours." The knocks echoed through the safe house, slow, controlled, deliberate. Harper motioned for the officer to stay back as she approached the door. Maddie held her breath, one hand instinctively shielding her belly. Another knock, same rhythm. Harper peered through the peephole, then exhaled sharply. "It's okay," she whispered. "It's someone I didn't think would ever help us." She opened the door. A tall man stepped inside, removing his hood as snowflakes slid off his coat. Maddie recognized him instantly. Adrian Crowe, Aldridge Capital's senior financial director, the man Charles trusted with every high-level secret. He was reserved, brilliant, and famously silent. Charles once bragged Adrian was unshakable. But the man standing before them looked shaken. "Miss Rowan," Adrian said softly, "I'm not here for Charles. I'm here for you." Maddie stared, confused. "Why?" Adrian pulled a folder from inside his coat. "Because I know what he's planning tomorrow, and if you don't act first, he'll win." Harper stepped forward sharply. "What plan?" Adrian opened the folder on the coffee table. Inside were internal emails, timestamps, and a press release draft scheduled for 9 a.m. He intends to announce you're entering a long-term psychiatric facility, permanently. Elise will stand beside him as his new fiancée. He's using your condition to justify full custody and secure the Aldridge political endorsement he's been seeking. Maddie felt the room spin. He can't do that. He can, Adrian said quietly. Unless someone stops him publicly and legally before morning. Harper's eyes narrowed. Why help us now? Adrian swallowed hard. Because I have a sister who went through something similar, and because Charles crossed a line even I can't ignore. He slid one final document toward Maddie. This is proof of financial crimes. Enough to end him. Maddie's heartbeat steadied. Will you testify? Adrian nodded. Yes. Under oath. But before anyone could respond, the officer's radio crackled. Charles's security team had found the safe house's street and was closing in fast. The officer's radio crackled again, louder this time. 2 SUVs approaching from the south, same plates as Aldridge Private Security. Maddie's stomach clenched. They'd found her again. Adrian immediately shut the blinds while Harper snapped into action, gathering files and securing her laptop. We don't have time, Harper said. If they breach this safe house, they'll seize Maddie. And that press release will go live tomorrow. The officer stepped to the window, peeking through a sliver. They're circling the block. We have minutes. Maddie felt the triplets kick anxiously. We can't keep running, she whispered. Charles will chase me forever. Adrian turned toward her. Then we don't run, we strike. He placed the final document, an encrypted ledger, on the table. This is the offshore account Charles used to launder company funds. If this hits the press tonight, Aldridge Capital collapses before he can make his announcement. Harper's eyebrows rose. How did you get this? Adrian hesitated. Because Charles trusted me more than he should have. The officer checked the hallway camera. Cars have stopped. 6 men are getting out. Harper gently grabbed Maddie's face, forcing her to focus. Listen to me. With this ledger, the recordings, the forged psychiatric files, if we release everything simultaneously, Charles won't just lose custody. He'll face criminal charges. The board will remove him. The press will crucify him. Maddie swallowed hard. Then let's do it. Adrian pulled out a portable hotspot and connected Harper's laptop. Upload to every major outlet and send anonymous packets to the federal investigators. Once it's out, he can't bury it. Harper's fingers flew across the keyboard. One file after another uploaded. A progress bar crawled forward. The officer whispered, "They're at the door." Harper hit send. Done. The moment the files launched into the world, the safehouse doorknob twisted violently. The officer braced himself, drawing his licensed weapon. Adrian grabbed Maddie's arm. "We need to move before they break in." The door shook under pounding fists. And then, suddenly, all pounding stopped, replaced by the distant, unmistakable sound of police sirens screaming down the street toward them. Red and blue lights splashed across the walls as sirens thundered closer. Harper peeked through the blinds, her breath catching. "It's NYPD and federal agents. They must have received the files already." Adrian nodded grimly. Once the ledger hit their servers, they had no choice but to act. Charles is finished. Outside, Aldridge security panicked, scattering back to their SUVs. Officers flooded the street, blocking exits and shouting commands. Maddie watched in disbelief as a man who once controlled her entire life lost control of his world in seconds. Harper turned to Maddie. "You're safe now. This is the beginning of the end for him." The officer opened the back door. "We need to get you to protective custody. The agencies will want statements, but only after you rest." As they escorted Maddie outside, snow drifted onto her hair, cold but strangely comforting. She looked up at the swirling lights, the chaos, the agents swarming the block, and felt the first breath of freedom she'd had in years. Then a black sedan screeched around the corner. Doors slammed. Charles stepped out, flanked by 2 of his private guards, his face twisted with fury and disbelief. "Madeline," he shouted, voice cracking. "You don't know what you've done." Federal agents surrounded him instantly. "Charles Aldridge, you are under investigation for financial fraud, witness tampering, and medical coercion. Stand down." But Charles lunged forward, eyes locked on Maddie. "You destroyed everything. Do you think anyone will believe you?" Maddie straightened, one hand on her belly. "The world already does." Agents restrained him as he shouted her name, his empire crashing around him, the press beginning to arrive, cameras flashing. Adrian stepped beside Maddie. "This is justice." But Harper whispered one final truth as Charles was shoved into the back of a police car. "Tomorrow, the entire world will see who he really is." By morning, every major network in America showed Charles Aldridge's face not as a celebrated CEO, but as a fraud, a manipulator, a man under federal investigation. The press tore apart his lies with the same precision he once used to control Maddie. Headlines scrolled across screens in Times Square, on Wall Street tickers, in every newsroom from coast to coast. CEO charged in financial scheme. Wife targeted in custody plot. Leaked audio reveals disturbing intent. But Maddie wasn't watching the chaos. She was lying in a hospital suite, this time safe, protected, surrounded by people who genuinely cared. Harper sat nearby, reviewing legal documents with calm confidence. Adrian waited in the hallway for updates, and the triplets, born just hours earlier, slept in warm bassinets beside her bed, tiny and perfect. Maddie touched each little hand, tears filling her eyes. "You're safe now," she whispered. "Mama's here." Harper smiled softly. "The court granted you full custody, permanently. Charles won't get near them again." Maddie exhaled shakily. "I never thought I'd make it out." "You didn't just get out," Harper said. "You won." Later that afternoon, a quiet knock sounded. Adrian stepped in, followed by a man Maddie hadn't expected to see, Liam Westbrook, a respected architect who once worked with her grandmother. He offered a gentle smile. "Your grandmother asked me to look after the Rowan properties when you were ready to take over." "Take over?" Maddie repeated. Liam nodded. "You're now the controlling heir of the Rowan estate. It's worth billions, Maddie. It's yours. All of it." She covered her mouth, overwhelmed. For the first time, her future wasn't a cage, it was wide open. Liam stepped closer. You're strong, stronger than you know, and if you ever need help rebuilding, I'm here. Maddie looked at her babies, her allies, her new beginning. She had lost everything, then gained what she truly deserved: freedom, power, love, and a life built on truth. Outside, cameras flashed as Charles was transported in handcuffs. Justice finally served. And in her quiet hospital room, surrounded by light, Maddie whispered, "We're free now." And just like that, our story comes to a close. If you're still here with me, my friend, then something in Maddie's journey must have touched your heart. Maybe it reminded you that no matter how dark life feels, you always have the power to rise again. The Stoics said, "The obstacle is the way," and Maddie proved it, turning pain into strength, betrayal into clarity, and fear into freedom. Let her story remind us all. You deserve safety, respect, and a life built on truth. If this ending moved you even a little, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more stories of courage and healing to life.